Hello friends, welcome to Shauna Stitches. I'm Shauna, and this is a special episode where I'm going to recap all of the Stephen West mystery knit-along shawls that I have knit so far. I decided to do this video today because although I've done some recaps in the past, there's always a new shawl to talk about, and I did ask my viewers on YouTube whether or not you'd be interested in another recap, and you said you would. So here I am. And I do know that every time that I've done these, I say something a little bit different. Not that I'm changing my mind, but just different things come to mind. I might tell you which yarns I used or how much yardage, how many grams, those kinds of things. And also just my thoughts on the shawl in general. So let's get into it. I started knitting the Stephen West mystery shawls in 2018, and I've continued through 2024, which I do have plans to do one for 2025. So in total, I have knit 7 of the MKALs as mysteries. I've knit 1 of the older ones that was no longer a mystery, and I'm planning on doing the 8th mystery this year. I do have a spreadsheet in front of me because there's no possible way I could remember all the things that I need to remember. And also, if you click right down below, there will be links to all of my project pages where you can find notes, colors used, yarns, amounts, adjustments that I made, as well as all the places that you can find me. I have a huge stack of shawls here next to me, just to give you an idea. This is what we are going to be talking about today, and I am super excited. Just a little bit of back history. I started knitting in 2016, and I have to say that Stephen West was not a pattern designer or knitter that was on my radar at all at first. I don't remember the first thing that I saw from him, but I'm pretty sure I was shocked by his color choices and thought, there's no way that's for me. For some reason, as the 2018 MKAL was coming out, I saw a lot of my Instagram friends talking about their plans, their yarns, their choices of color, all the things, and I just got sucked into the mystery. It must have been a day or so before the MKAL was starting, and I decided to look through my stash to see if I had yarns, and that was going to be for texture time, which all we knew is that we needed 5 colors of yarn, one of those being a mohair. So I went through my stash, and I found everything but a mohair. And of course I can't show you my yarns, but I can show you how my shawl turned out. So let's see. Obviously my mohair is that very bright pink. This was my very first time doing Latvian braids, lots of those. I think it was my first time using mohair as well. I know I had a yarn that was dyed by the Creative Obsession. I was forgetting the name. This one I remember is from a dyer that's no longer dyeing called Stitch and Octopus. And as for the others, I don't remember. They are all on my project page, but I do remember really enjoying this process. I was only knitting for 2 years at the time and not confident in a lot of these things. This might have been the first time I ever did brioche. And it wasn't just any old brioche, it was syncopated brioche. I do remember that. And let me just tell you, if you've never knit a Stephen West pattern, but especially a Stephen West MKAL, you will learn so much. He will hold your hand. There will be videos. There will be help in the forums. Don't be scared because you can do it. As a new knitter, I knit this beautiful shawl. And I was hooked immediately. I fell in love with Stephen West, with his designs. While he chooses some very out there colors, I mean, some might argue that my hot pink is an out there color, but it's my color. It's not one of his choices. I think everything goes pretty well together. It doesn't clash, at least not in my eyes. And I found out that you can make a Stephen West shawl into your own. And that's when I knew I was going to do the MKAL maybe forever. I don't know how long Stephen plans on continuing them, but I love them. So in total, texture time took 5 different colors, and I used 1,975 yards of yarn. I'm calling this a triangle shape shawl, and some of the specific stitch patterns that we used were braids. That was the Latvian braids, short rows, and brioche. So those were some of the key techniques. We also had eyelets. I didn't put that on my list, but we do have them. The second mystery knit along that I did was 2019, and that was Starflake. And I was getting married in 2019, and a friend of mine who happened to be a yarn dyer at the time reached out and said that she would love to dye yarn for me for this shawl and asked me to pick some colors. So I picked a teal and kind of a coral color, and we made Starflake. This is a fun 2-color shawl, and let's see, I already told you it's 2 colors. I used 1,436 yards of yarn, and I decided to call this a wavy crescent because you can see the bottom is not straight, and you might notice my border section is larger than what was called for in the pattern. If I have a choice and I have yarn left over, I will always make the shawl bigger. I like to use as much of my yarn as I can, and I just love a huge shawl. I am quite tall, almost 6 feet, so the bigger the better in my world. This is one of the few, actually this is the only MKAL that I have knit that's 2 colors. Looking back on shawls that I have not knit, there was only one other that was 2 colors, and that was Rockefeller in 2012. So a 2-color shawl for Stephen is rare, and I like this one. I think it's quite nice. I remember starting with this star pattern here and thought it was pretty fun. So the techniques that I have noted that were used in this was brioche, eyelets, let's see. This section here is the brioche. We do have eyelets along here, and it was modular in that this first section was knit in pieces. So that is Starflake. Okay, the third mystery shawl that I knit was in 2020, and that was Slipstravaganza. Fun fact, Slipstravaganza is one of the few shawls that I've ever actually worn out and about because I just don't wear them. I love knitting them, don't wear them. But I recently, just this year, wore this to a wedding because it matched my outfit. And I have to say, when you go to even something in the summer and it's a little bit cool, maybe there's air conditioning, this was actually such a nice compliment to my outfit, and I thought it looked really classy. And I was the only one with a hand knit there. So as I said, this is called Slipstravaganza. We used 4 colors, and my particular version, which again has more of the repeats down here than called for, I used 1,959 yards. So of the 3 so far, this was my largest. I used, oh, what yarn is this? This is Holstgarn, I believe. And 4 different colors. We had honeycombs and slip stitches, eyelets. Yeah, I really like this one. This might be one of my favorites. I should say, yes, I told you where I got yarn from this. This mostly came from Stash except for the mohair. And this was all purchased directly from Holstgarn. And I think that's all I have to say about this one. In 2021, again, I went diving through my stash to find some colors for Shawlography, and this was a 5-color shawl. I ended up finding a very unusual color palette for me. In fact, I think all of these came from, gosh, there was a sock yarn subscription. What was it called? Knit Crate. I was a Knit Crate subscriber, and all of these were Knit Crate colors that were not my normal colors, not things I was drawn to. In fact, brown is not my normal color. And I have to say, color-wise, this is one of my absolute favorites. I love how this turned out. For me, it's so unexpected, and I just think it looks so good. You might notice along the bottom of the border here, I did something different. Stephen's version had you follow the same color order, so A, B, C, D, E, over and over again, and I decided to do mine in a random order. I think I used a random number generator and just did the stripes as it came up. And I thought that was fun. It was more fun to knit, but now that it's knit, I don't know, maybe I would have liked to have gone in order. It might have just looked a little bit more cohesive, a little more expected. But in a Stephen shawl, I mean, we can be unexpected, right? So I do remember this is the only shawl that I did not finish basically right after the last clue. So this one I did not finish until almost right before the 2022 shawl came out. And I knew I had to get this off the needles in order to start the next one. So that was my motivation. I did get it finished. As I said, this was 5 colors, and my shawl took 1,463 yards of yarn. It is a crescent shape. And some of the techniques that were used was brioche. We have brioche down here in the brown and yellow. Baubles, which I'm not a big bauble fan. I think they look okay. This one was the classic shrimps. I have some brown shrimps there. The shrimps were not a popular choice. And what else? Slip stitches. We use slip stitches for this. And there's I-cord. There's a lot of things I'm not saying. This was one of the interesting techniques. I don't remember what this was called, but I do remember that those were not difficult, but time consuming to knit. Overall, I really did like this, even though it took me forever. It was just the bottom portion, those stripes, that took me forever. Okay, 2022 came along, and we needed 3 colors for a shawl called Twists and Turns. And this is my version of Twists and Turns. I used all Knit Picks palette yarn for this, and I did buy yarn for this one. I did not stash dive. In retrospect, I don't love my colors for this shawl. I think it's mostly that coral color, which I do love, but there's just something about it. It's very loud, maybe a little too loud for me, but I did enjoy the process. I recall we started this clue 1 with this section here, but these braids were long I-cord gaps, and it was very strange. Nobody really knew where this was going from there. So I used 1,640 yards of yarn, and I'm calling this a modified crescent because of that center section. I don't really know what else you would call it, but I would say that this was optional. So had I not put that kind of low-hanging section, it would be, I guess, more of a crescent, or maybe even more like a scarf shape. But this used, let's see, we had stripes, of course, short rows, twisted stitches, and cables. And this one we had this very interesting option to knit I-cords and then weave them through the cables, which created a very interesting look, something I've not seen before. And I enjoyed knitting this one. I thought it was a bit crazy. It was definitely out there. I just wish I would have picked different colors. All right, In 2023, we had quite a controversy over the Geogradient shawl. This was a 4-color shawl. I, again, used Holskarn, 4 different colors, all in pinks. And I can't remember if this was a set of 4 colors that Stephen had picked, because for a while there he was selling Holst on his site as well, or if I put this together, I just don't remember. So this, again, is a crescent shape. You might notice I chose to stay with the original center instead of changing it, but you will find all kinds of different centers. There's crochet, there's, I think maybe just a knit square, but I stayed with the original. I didn't want to frog it. Some of the techniques in this shawl are eyelets, stripes, slip stitches, dip stitch, and the fact that it is modular. So these were very interesting. I loved the look of these, but I didn't enjoy knitting them very much. And again, I made my border much bigger than called for. I can't remember if it was just a whole repeat more or even more than that, but I really wanted to use up a lot of my yarn. The other section that I really liked the look of here were these sections. I just think they look so cool. And overall, I really like the look of this shawl. I think it's beautiful and quite large. Then last year, I went stash diving again and got help from a lot of my different viewers and Instagram friends. They all helped me decide what colors to choose, and I am so thankful for that because I could have never thought of these myself, and this might be one of my favorite color combinations ever. So this was all stash. This is Go Go Dynamo. And as I said, this was 3 colors. And this is my largest shawl to date. I used the most yardage. It was 2,088 yards. I think that's my biggest. Yes, biggest, just barely bigger than Geogradient and much bigger than the others. So for this shawl, some of the techniques that we used is brioche, eyelets, it was modularly knit, and stripes. And I did call this one a crescent as well. Again, of course, I made my border bigger because as these rows get super long, I just like to punish myself a little bit. But I just love a big shawl. So that was it. That was 7 of the mystery shawls that I've knit so far. Of the 7, let me see, I have to dig through my pile here. These 3, we have Texture Time, we have, which one was this? Oh goodness, I'm forgetting. This one, the brown one. Was that Shawlography? Yes, I think so. Twist and Turn, Shawlography, and Go Go Dynamo were all knit from stash, and these are by far my favorite. It's very interesting that even when I specifically pick colors that I know that I love, like pink, that's my favorite, that it's the stash ones that I end up loving the most. And especially even in colors that I don't normally gravitate towards. I don't know why that is. I just think these are gorgeous. And I thought I spilled my water. I did not. So those are the 7 that I have knit. As you know, we have 2025's Mystery MKAL coming up. And I again went stash diving. I had help from some friends, from Instagram. I put up some different options. Some of them were mostly pinks, again, all from stash. Actually, no, I take that back. One option that I put up was if I was going to order yarn, it was a gradient of pinks and I was going to order from Knit Picks, but I really did want to pick from stash. So I went through and I found these 4 yarns. And these are all Tuscan Knits, who no longer dyes. When she was going out of business, I bought, I don't know, 2 or 3 of the mystery grab bags that she was selling. She was just closing out her shop and I had never had her yarn before, and I wanted to try it since she was leaving dyeing. And these are some of the yarns that I got. I had no clue what I was going to do with these yarns. Again, they are not my normal colors, but I think I'm going to absolutely love them. So let me show you what we have. And some of these don't have names because she was just getting rid of yarns. But this one here is a very neutral tan with kind of like some purple hints in there, a little bit of green. And this one is called Love Letter. This one is 100% superwash merino. My second color is a nameless color, but you can see it's bringing in some of that light tan, lots of speckles in a darker brown, this orangey color throughout. And this is also 100% superwash. My third color takes those really dark speckles, but it's a solid. So it's kind of got that orangey brown kind of color. And again, this one does not have a name, but this one is a 75-25. And it's a BFL 75-25. My third color, which is kind of a pop of color, is this teal color. I don't have a name for this one either, but it's on a fuzz base, which this is such an interesting base. It is 55% superwash merino, 20% kid mohair, and 25% nylon. So when I got this originally, my first thought was socks, but I think it's going to look really beautiful as a shawl. So those are my 4 main colors. And then this year, Stephen is doing his Mohair Dare, If You Dare. And again, I just happen to have 2 Tuscan Knits colors that are going to match really well. Since it only calls for 1 25-gram cake of mohair, and these are both 50 grams, I don't know if I'll use both because clearly I won't even make it through all of one. So it's just going to kind of depend on when those Mohair Dares come in and which one or none or whatnot, but at least I have options. So that is my plan for 2025, and I'm super excited. Just based on what I compiled earlier today, I went through and I looked at even the shawls that I have not knit, the mysteries before. There's a total of 15 because in 2017, Stephen actually had 2 mysteries. There was Marled Magic Shawl and Speckle and Pop. So if I consider both of those, total of 15, 8 of those 15 have been crescent shape. So it kind of makes me think that more likely than not, we might have a crescent shape. We could have something much different, but that's kind of my guess. And then the other second most common shape was a triangle or something similar to a triangle shape. I think we're definitely going to have stripes with all these different colors, and I don't know if we'll have brioche this year. If brioche scares you, let me just tell you, it's not as hard as you think it is, and also Stephen will always have an alternative. So if you want to knit the MKAL shawl, do not let brioche be the thing that holds you back, because for sure you can do it or you can do the alternative. Either way, it will be beautiful. I did want to show you one last shawl before I leave you today, and that is Exploration Station. So I knit this well after it was a mystery. It is all Knit Pick Stroll, and it smells really good because I keep it in a chest with a bunch of like bar soaps, and it just smells so good. But this was a 4-color shawl. I used 960 yards, and this one was classified as a half circle, but I also think it's like a crescent. So I wonder, I'm not going to reevaluate all those shawls, but I guess, yeah, I don't know. What's the difference between a half circle and a crescent? I mean, I know the difference, but I don't know. Anyways, this had brioche, eyelets, these short row wedges, and I remember knitting this in about 2020. Actually, I own all of the MKAL shawl patterns, and someday I would like to say I've knit them all, but I keep finding all these other things to knit and I just haven't got to them all yet. So I would love to hear, what are your plans for your 2025 Mystery Musicale if you are going to participate? What are your colors? What do you think we're going to see in the shawl? And also, which of all the MKALs is your favorite? I would love to hear that. All right, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you being here. If you have a moment, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I will talk to you soon. Bye.